The current coronavirus pandemic is a particular and a rare situation. It can affect people physically, but also psychologically. Well, in this context, many people will experience stress, anxiety and depression reactions. But then to help us understand how we can manage anxiety and depression during this pandemic, we are now joined on the line by Dr. John Parker, a lecturer at the University of Cape Town in the Psychiatry and Mental Health Department. For more on this discussion, Dr. Parker, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to SA Today.
Good afternoon to you and everyone tonight, and thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, Dr. Parker. Now, during this rather difficult time, what can all individuals do to keep one's mind mentally strong under the lockdown? I mean, can you share some of the insights about being mentally strong?
Certainly. I think some basic things we can all be doing is number one, striving to maintain an atmosphere of calmness and of routine in our lives. Staying regular, even though we might not be going to work, just establishing regular routines and disciplines. Trying to see this as a period of time in our life where we might have opportunities to start new things, maybe the things we've been planning to do for a long time, like an exercise program or an online course. Practicing gratitude in the height of all this. There's always so much we can notice around us in our lives to love, even at this time. Maintaining connections with family and friends is very important. Maintaining a sense of optimism by reminding one another of what we do have. As South Africans, we've proven time and time again that we really can stand tall when the going gets tough. And practice compassion towards yourself and others. It's so good for you, and if you're worried about getting sick yourself, there can be no better time than now to be paying it forward. So those are some of the basic things. It's important in families to maintain structures and boundaries as pillars of home life, such as regular healthy meals, roles in the house, tasks and chores, and to try and get everyone to buy into these as a collective project. It's also important to maintain an atmosphere of honesty and curiosity about what's going on, but to place limits on media exposure, and very importantly, to stress the importance of using reputable sources of information. I think those are some of the basics we can all stick to.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this pandemic has stirred anxiety and fear. And if one is feeling anxious, how does one cope and manage anxiety? I mean, you've just mentioned that it's very important that we maintain social relations with our friends and families. But then when we've been told to socially isolate, I mean, how do you deal with this?
So, these days we're so connected by media. I think it's important to set time aside every day to make connections with people, to have those conversations, check in on one another. A lot of our own mental health arises as a result of reaching out to other people and caring for them too. So that's very important. It's important to remember that we're all fundamentally different, and so we'll have different ways of responding to a crisis like this. It might be worrying, it might be anxiety, it might be a sense of grief, it might be tension and angry outbursts. The really important thing is to, at any moment, try to notice and accept that this is just a feeling we're having. It's the body's alarm reactions, and of course the system is going to be sensitive at a time like this. But as soon as we can start to notice this and any other emotional response within ourselves, that gives us the space to realize that we have this as an emotion, and it gives us the room to then start to understand how it works, so that we can learn how not to be overwhelmed by it. So a useful thing to think about is having your feelings before they have you, and then really allowing the feeling to pass, the wave of anxiety or anger, allowing it to pass the way a storm passes or a wave breaks in the ocean, rather than trying to fight with it.
And having said that, Dr. Park, I mean, can you outline the differences between feeling down and being depressed? I mean, what are the exact symptoms of each?
Most certainly. And this is very important in a time like this to understand that it is natural to feel down, perhaps to feel a sense of loss and grief. The world, after all, is changing. And this is not abnormal, and in fact, worrying too much about that can actually make it worse. So it's important to allow ourselves to have these feelings. But the big difference is that with a real depression, there's a sustained low mood. The depressed mood or loss of interest or pleasure persists. There isn't that up and downness that, we tend to find when we're, for example, in mourning. We can still laugh about something. It's when it becomes sustained and when other things start to change, like our ability to eat so much that we lose weight, our sleep patterns, loss of energy, and fatigue, and feelings of worthlessness or excessive guilt. When those things start to happen more and start to last and go on for a week or two, then we really need to start thinking more seriously about depression and getting some sort of professional help.
And I suppose the most important aspect of it all, Dr. Parker, is that it's okay to have anxiety and, because you know that you are not alone. And the first step of mastering your anxiety is to recognize what it is when it happens. I mean, for parents and for guardians, how then can their loved ones identify symptoms of depression and mental instability?
Absolutely. So the key with children is to really remain in touch with them. So to talk to your children, be honest, but think carefully about the appropriate quantity of information and about pitching it in a way they can understand. Again, normalize anxiety and understand that they're probably going to be a bit more clingy and a little bit more demanding on their parents because they can pick up the anxiety. Take time to talk with them and answer their questions and reassure them that they're safe. Let them know it's okay if they feel upset. And maybe try to be a role model for them. Show them how you deal with your own stress. Again, it's very important to limit exposure to news coverage, especially social media with children, and to clarify what they might be hearing, and to keep up regular routines. Again, we can expect a certain amount of regressive behavior, changes in appetite, sleep issues, reassurance seeking, and so on. The important thing is to really pay attention to if it starts lasting, if these out-of-character behaviors go on in the course of the day and also persist for an extended period. And then really it's very important to get some professional help.
And I suppose that some people may be responding to practical concerns such as the threat of job losses, which is highly likely for quite a number of companies in South Africa moving forward after this lockdown. Then how then do you identify a general worry or depression or anxiety?
So, a useful way of understanding when something reaches a level of what we call the clinical level of needing treatment is to ask the question, is this now interfering in my ability to live my usual life? Is it interfering in my ability to concentrate? In other words, would I be able to work? Or is it interfering in that? Is it interfering in my relationships? So when I am started to notice that I'm not functioning the way I would normally be able to function, that's the important warning sign. That's when it's time to say, okay, I need to recognize that this is serious and I need to get help.
Dr. Parker, thank you so much for your thoughts and for your reflections. That was Dr. John Parker, a lecturer at the University of Cape Town in the Psychiatry and Mental Health Department, and just giving us his insights with regards to how people can be mentally ready for the 21-day lockdown. This is SA Today. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.